This 84-year-old woman, frail and weary, could no longer stay in her beloved cabin as her children decided it was best for her to be admitted to a nursing home. Her heart ached to donate her cherished but humble abode to a homeless man who had always been her steadfast helper, but her children cruelly prevented this act of generosity. When the homeless man eventually found his way into the cabin, what he discovered inside left him utterly astounded and moved to tears. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Before we delve deeper into this heart-wrenching tale, please show your support by liking this video, sharing it with others, and subscribing to our channel for more touching stories like this. Your support means the world to us. Thank you. Now let's continue. Since her husband's unexpected passing, Eleanor had been living alone in a quaint cabin in Texas. Despite the sorrow that often filled her days, she had managed to take care of herself with remarkable resilience throughout her life. However, as the years crept up on her, it became increasingly difficult to maintain her independence. At 84, she still strove to keep the place clean and well-tended, but her once robust strength and health were fading. One evening, the phone rang, piercing the silence of her cabin. It was her oldest son on the other end, his voice filled with concern, once again urging her to consider moving to a nursing home. There, he assured her, she would have healthcare professionals to tend to her every need, engaging activities to fill her time, and the company of other residents. Eleanor listened to his heartfelt arguments and, after much contemplation, decided it was time to accept their suggestion. She could live in a nursing home. But the thought of what would become of her beloved cabin and the small plot of land surrounding it, which she had nurtured with love and care for nearly her entire life, weighed heavily on her heart. Her oldest son proposed selling the property, promising that the money would be entirely hers. Her youngest son suggested renovating it and renting it out, generating a steady income for the family. Eleanor pondered their suggestions but was convinced she had a more meaningful solution: donating the cabin, just as it was, to Oliver, a homeless man who lived nearby. Oliver had always shown her kindness and a helping hand whenever she needed it, and she wanted to repay his goodwill. Her children, however, were not fond of this idea at all and harbored distrust towards Oliver. Yet, out of respect for Eleanor's advanced age and her unwavering wish, they reluctantly agreed to consider the possibility. What neither Oliver nor her family knew was that Eleanor had left something in the cabin far more valuable than the house itself. Oliver, now 60 years old, had endured the loss of his wife a decade ago, which plunged him into a deep depression that severely affected his life. It was on the streets, 3 years ago, that he and Eleanor's paths crossed. Eleanor was returning from the market, her arms laden with several bags, when one of them suddenly burst, sending fruits tumbling into the street. Seeing the elderly woman in distress, Oliver swiftly came to her aid, gathering all the scattered fruits and even procuring a replacement bag from a nearby store. After that, he insisted on carrying the remaining bags for her, saying, "Leave it to me, I'll take everything for you." Little did Oliver know that this seemingly ordinary act of kindness would change his life forever. From that day on, Oliver regularly helped Eleanor with her shopping and minor repairs around the cabin. Despite Eleanor's frequent offers of payment, Oliver always refused, understanding that she lived a modest life alone. Instead, he cherished the moments when he received a slice of cake and a cup of coffee from Eleanor's magical hands, as he fondly described them. Over the years, these two solitary souls forged a deep friendship. Eleanor even invited Oliver to dinner at her house, and they shared many heartfelt conversations. Oliver listened intently to her advice, and Eleanor noticed a gradual improvement in his depressive symptoms. For Oliver, helping Eleanor gave him a sense of purpose and dignity that he had long thought lost. When Oliver learned that Eleanor was moving to a nursing home, his heart tightened with sorrow. Eleanor confided that for the past 2 years, her children had been persistently urging her to leave the cabin and the land. She no longer had the strength to resist their constant pressure. Ideally, Eleanor would have preferred to spend her final days in the cabin she had built with her late husband, Robert, but as she resignedly said, not all of our wishes can come true in this life. Oliver embraced his dear friend, assuring her that she could always rely on him for anything she needed. He thanked her profoundly for everything she had done for him, giving him a renewed sense of dignity and trust, and the hope to rise above his homelessness. In less than 2 weeks, Eleanor moved to the nursing home. Her family handled all the arrangements swiftly, without consulting her, eager to avoid any debates or confrontations. Oliver never got a chance to bid her farewell. He just realized she had left because he no longer saw her around town. Nonetheless, he continued to visit the cabin occasionally to ensure everything was in order. On one of these visits, Oliver was fortunate enough to encounter Eleanor's children at the cabin. What Oliver found inside during one of his checks astonished him beyond words. Hidden in the cabin were mementos, letters, and tokens of gratitude from Eleanor, signifying the depth of their bond and her appreciation for his unwavering kindness. This discovery left Oliver deeply moved, realizing that the true value of Eleanor's gift extended far beyond the physical structure of the cabin. He approached and introduced himself. He inquired about his friend, and the eldest son dismissed him rudely, accusing him of only seeking money for liquor or other vices. Oliver didn't anticipate such harshness from Eleanor's children, who he had thought would be as courteous as their mother. He stood there, momentarily stunned and disoriented by the unexpected hostility. When he asked again where Eleanor was, the children not only ignored him but also chased him off the property, warning him to stay away or face police action. Oliver felt deeply hurt, but he wouldn't let this unkindness deter him from finding his dear friend. Determined to locate Eleanor, he decided to uncover her whereabouts on his own since her children refused to divulge the information. He went to the city's homeless shelter and asked the caretaker if there was a list of local nursing homes he could consult. From this, he learned that there were only 4 nursing homes in the area, 2 downtown, 1 in a distant neighborhood, and the 4th on the city's outskirts. Despite the distances, Oliver was resolute and prepared to walk as far as needed to find Eleanor. After a refreshing shower at the shelter, he set out early the next morning. The first 2 nursing homes were relatively close to the shelter, but Eleanor was not in either. Undeterred, he continued walking for another 40 minutes to reach the 3rd home. Although there was a Margaret there, it was not his Eleanor. Undaunted, Oliver pressed on, walking for another hour to the main road that led to the final nursing home on his list. Despite attempting to hitchhike, no one stopped to offer him a ride. After 3 long hours of walking, he finally saw the nursing home in the distance and headed toward it, feeling exhausted and parched. Upon entering, Oliver was filled with a mix of hope and anxiety. This had to be the place. Without hesitation, he approached the receptionist, confidently stating he was there to visit Margaret, who had recently moved in. The receptionist paused before confirming that Eleanor was indeed there. Oliver requested to see her, claiming to be her brother to ensure he would be allowed in. The staff, noting the nearing end of visiting hours, agreed to let him in briefly. They led him to her room, and what he saw left him speechless. Eleanor was lying in bed, looking frail and ill. Oliver had never seen her in such a fragile state, but when Eleanor noticed Oliver at the door, her eyes brightened, and she smiled warmly. Oliver approached slowly, assessing her condition, but Eleanor urgently gestured for him to come closer and said, "Don't waste time, I have something to tell you." Oliver sat beside her and helped her sit up. She leaned in and whispered something in his ear that made him shiver. Eleanor, with a voice weakened by illness but filled with determination, told Oliver about a hidden treasure she had kept in the cabin, far more precious than the cabin itself. It was a collection of letters, mementos, and a small box of her late husband's belongings, which she wanted Oliver to have. She revealed that these items held the essence of her life's memories and love, a gift she had always intended for him. Oliver, overwhelmed with emotion, promised to retrieve and cherish these items. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears of gratitude and relief, knowing her final wish would be honored by her trusted friend. https://chatgpt.com/c/3f95fba-20f1-4467-8fd0-36 by 5a41d239 text you %27v 20 reached 20 reached 20 the use 20 default 20 default 20. In the ensuing days, Oliver poured his heart into modestly refurbishing the cabin, aiming to enhance its charm while preserving the original touches lovingly crafted by Eleanor and her husband. He carefully chose the personal belongings left behind, arranging them with the reverence of a curator setting up a cherished museum display. On the living room wall, he placed a stunning photograph of Eleanor, below which he lit a candle, its gentle glow a testament to his deep respect for her. Oliver's actions weren't motivated by the inheritance of the property or the money he had discovered, rather. They stemmed from a profound desire to honor the treasured friendship he shared with Eleanor. It wasn't long before Eleanor's 2 children arrived at the cabin, taken aback to find Oliver residing there. Confronting him, they demanded to know what he thought he was doing. With a heavy heart, Oliver recounted how he had visited Eleanor in the nursing home before her passing, and that she had entrusted the cabin and its contents to him. Skeptical and convinced he was delusional, they couldn't fathom how such a valuable family property could be bequeathed to a homeless man. Their disbelief wounded Oliver deeply, but he remained steadfast in his truth. Oliver's sorrow deepened as he realized that Eleanor's children were unaware of her final wishes. The younger son, consumed with rage, lunged at Oliver, barely restrained by his older brother, who cautioned that violence could lead to legal repercussions. Choosing a more civilized approach, the older brother called the police to settle the matter. Within 20 minutes, a police car arrived, and the officers, after hearing the situation, asked Oliver to provide any form of proof, be it a recording, a will, or a signed letter from Eleanor. Oliver had nothing but her word. The police informed him that without tangible proof, he would need to vacate the premises immediately. The younger son, still seething, insisted on pressing charges for trespassing, determined to see Oliver punished. Oliver's heart shattered. The disrespect shown by Eleanor's children towards their mother's wishes brought him to tears. He pleaded for a few moments to gather his belongings. Observing the cabin's improved state, the older son begrudgingly allowed him some time. With a heavy heart, Oliver retrieved his old blanket from a chair and carefully packed it into his faded leather suitcase, covering the few possessions he had. As he left the cabin, every step was a painful reminder of the bond he had cherished and the cruel twist of fate that now tore him away from the place where he had sought to honor his dear friend's memory. Before leaving, Oliver took one last, sorrowful look at the shrine he had lovingly prepared for his friend Eleanor. His heart ached, but he surrendered to the authorities without further incident, determined not to give Eleanor's children more ammunition or worsen his predicament. Despite the dire circumstances, Oliver was not naive. He already had a clear plan in mind. Eleanor's children were clueless about the storm brewing in the next few weeks. The youngest son stubbornly refused to drop the charges, but when Oliver arrived at the police station, he wasn't arrested due to his clean record. Nevertheless, he was instructed to secure a public defender swiftly. Upon release, Oliver returned to the shelter, where he spent his nights and sought advice from the caretaker, who could only point to an ad in the city's service directory. Meanwhile, Eleanor's children wasted no time. They obtained a restraining order against Oliver and promptly put the cabin up for sale at $84,000, disregarding the personal items and furniture still inside. Their priority was to sell the property as quickly as possible. A week later, a lawyer named Henry Brooks contacted Eleanor's children, expressing interest in the cabin as a potential vacation home. The children, eager to sell, mentioned there were other interested buyers and stated that the highest bid would secure the property. When Henry inquired about the top offer, the older son revealed a potential buyer had offered $90,000 in 3 installments. Henry paused, contemplating the offer and its worth. After a moment of silence, Henry offered $91,000 in cash, with the condition that the deal be finalized immediately. The children, without hesitation, accepted the proposal and scheduled the transaction for a week later, ready to exchange money for the house key. They celebrated the swift sale and planned to dispose of what they deemed junk left by the cabin's former occupant. However, Henry had a different perspective. He offered an additional $1,000 for the children to leave everything in the cabin as it was. Driven by greed, Eleanor's children agreed to the revised deal, settling at $92,000 without removing a single item. 7 days after the phone negotiation, the children arrived at the cabin to finalize the sale. A luxury sedan parked nearby, and a man in his 40s or 50s, dressed in a sharp suit, stepped out from the driver's seat. Introducing himself as lawyer Henry Brooks, he left his passenger waiting in the vehicle. After exchanging pleasantries, Henry and Eleanor's children proceeded with the transaction. The lawyer opened a suitcase filled with bundles of cash, handing it to the younger sibling, who counted the money and nodded to his brother. The older brother then handed over an envelope containing the documents and the house key. "Congratulations, Henry. This is your new vacation home," he said. But Henry extended his hand, stopping them. "Don't congratulate me, gentlemen. The true owner of this admirable cabin is not me." Eleanor's children exchanged bewildered glances, unable to comprehend the unfolding scenario. "I'm merely the intermediary," Henry clarified. Just then, the second occupant of the luxury sedan emerged. Dressed in a sharp suit, with a meticulously groomed beard and polished shoes, he exuded an air of distinction. The children thought they recognized him but couldn't be certain. As the man stepped forward, their jaws dropped. It was Oliver. "This is the gentleman purchasing the property. The money in the suitcase belongs to him. Please proceed with the handover of the keys and documents," Henry instructed. The children were at a loss, caught between feelings of betrayal and humiliation. The money was real, and it was the agreed amount. The older son, bristling with anger, handed over the key and the envelope, his face contorted with resentment. Oliver accepted the key, passed the envelope to Henry, and addressed the children with a calm yet stern voice. "You never understood your mother's true wishes. You did everything to keep me away from her and what she left behind. But she anticipated this and provided me with the means to ensure her will be fulfilled." The children, still reeling, couldn't fathom how Oliver had come into such a substantial sum. They had no inkling that they were holding a portion of their own mother's money. Oliver, now the legal owner of the cabin, continued, "I will live here and honor everything Eleanor and her husband built. Prepare for court. Use this money to hire a good lawyer for the lawsuit you filed against me. You'll need it." With that, Oliver asserted, "Now, leave my property, or I'll call the police." He then closed the door behind him, leaving Eleanor's children in a state of shock. Inside, Oliver relit the candle beneath Eleanor's photograph, feeling a sense of peace wash over him. That night, he enjoyed a deep, restorative sleep in his rightful home, knowing he had honored his friend's memory and secured her legacy. As Oliver secured his place in the cabin and honored Eleanor's legacy, we witnessed a powerful story of loyalty, respect, and perseverance. What have you learned from Oliver's journey and Eleanor's foresight? How do you think we can apply these lessons in our own lives? Please comment below with one thing you've learned and plan to practice in your life. If you like this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.